Hello everybody, this is Mr. Rob and welcome back to another episode of the Oakland Athletics franchise here on MLB The Show 24, as our Oakland Athletics have made it to the final week of the regular season. Before we go through those final games, our minor league affiliates have reached the end of their season. And you saw in the last episode, they did not make the postseason. So what we're going to do today is just kind of go through both clubs, kind of highlight their seasons, recap their years like we usually do with Oakland. I won't go as in-depth with all the prospects because that's a lot, but also maybe highlight some players who could be making a difference in 2025 and beyond. So if you're excited for this one, make sure you drop a like and you subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. Starting off with the AA team, the Midland Rockhounds finished 30-39. And it was not the best year for them. They also did not finish the first half as the division winner either. The Hooks did that both times. But so that was them. The AAA affiliate, Las Vegas Aviators, also did not do very good. They were 66-84 and well below 500. So let's just kind of go through each player on each team and just kind of highlight their seasons. First, we'll take a look at the player stats, kind of look at some, or team stats, take a look at some of the hot ones. The Rockhounds started off with the AA affiliates. They finished 27th in batting average. Runs, they were 27th as well. Home runs, they were 25th. If you look at their strikeouts, they were 29th. So strike out a lot, just kind of like our team. Slugging, they were 27th. If we go to the pitching side of things, ERA-wise, we were 22nd. Runs allowed, we were 16th. So it looks like a lot of our runs came off of errors, which is not necessarily a good thing either. And then as you can see, earned runs, we were 20th. Home runs allowed, did we give it the long ball a lot? So we actually did not really. We 12th in that category. And then win percentage, we were the tied for 28th best team in the AA. Only team we were better than was the AA affiliate of the Dodgers. If we go to AAA, batting average wise for your Aviators, we were 22nd. Runs, we were 20th. So we're always in the 20 categories, it seems, for both squads. Home runs, did we hit the long ball well? No, we were 21st. And then if you take a look at slugging, we were 20th. On the pitching side of things, ERA wise, we were 20th. Runs allowed, we were tied for 18th. Home runs allowed, we were 13th. And finally, let's do win percentage. The Aviators were the tie for 27th best team in baseball. So across the league, across our entire organization, it is not necessarily the best of records for us. That tells you how hard this rebuild is going to be. But let's go into the player stats now for our teams. We'll start off in the AA affiliates. I'm going to go position by position to kind of highlight some of the key players. Starting off at the starting pitcher, I'll organize it by innings pitched so you can see who is the most prevalent. Obviously, some players have fluctuated between AA and AAA, and I'll try to highlight that as we go. But the guy who spent most of the time at AA innings pitched wise was Jack O'Loughlin, and he pitched pretty good. He's a 61 overall D potential. Not sure how much his future is with the team, but hey, he's still going up in rating, so that's good for the 6'5" man from Australia. Grant McColm is next, 4.04 ERA for him. He's actually injured at the moment. He fractured his arm, so that's why he didn't get more playing time. But it's kind of the same boat as McLaughlin. He's 63 overall D potential. He's still increasing, so it's always good to have pitching depth in the organization. Not sure how far those two guys will go, but you know, it's at least good while they're here in AA. Michael Arias is an interesting one because we acquired him off of waivers early on in the season when I thought we desperately needed pitching depth, and I was like, hey, if he pitches pretty good, maybe I'll hot shot him to the rotation. And well, that did not work out. He had a 4.77 ERA. He doesn't have a high potential. He's not really improving, so maybe that was kind of a waste of a waiver wire, but I mean, he's only 22 years old. Freddie Tarnok is the first guy in AA who has some major league experience, as he had a 4.22 ERA for us. He's been on the major league club for over 1 year, which is odd because he's only pitched 15 innings. But he came over in that trade for Matt Olson a few years ago. You know, not sure if he'll ever really make an impact on the rotation, but maybe he'll be in AAA next season. Probably will start in AA. He actually did fluctuate between AA and AAA this year. Gunnar Hoglund was a little bit unfortunate for us because he's the first guy on this list who I think actually has a future in the rotation. But early on in the year, he fractured his head, so hopefully he's okay. He's 24 years old, 64 overall C potential, but I do think he's better than... He has the highest chance out of any starting pitcher in Double A. You can see his ratings are still going up pretty good. He was pitching solid until the injury through his 10 starts. So hopefully he comes back next year. I don't think he'll be one of those guys who retires because of an injury. If he did, that would be really bad. But, you know, I like Gunnar Hoglund. Maybe he stays in Double A to start next year just so he can get back underneath his feet and then maybe get the bump to Triple A at some point. Royber Salinas is the next guy. He was pretty good. He said he's on a roll. 6'2 overall D potential, though. He is decreasing. He might be one of those guys that unfortunately gets cut next year with all the draft picks coming in. We got to release some of our minor league prospects, and I think Royber Salinas could be on the chopping block. Relief pitchers, same thing. We'll just go through innings pitched. Osvaldo Bido is the most used guy. He's another guy who has some major league experience. 28 years old, but he's still kicking. He's still doing pretty good. He played in 16 games with the Pirates, almost said Steelers. Pirates last year. Wasn't very good, but he had a good year in Double A, so he's trying to make it back to the major league level. Jack Wisenberg is another reliever. I'm always looking for good relievers, so if we can have some guys like Wisenberg who has a sub-3 ERA, that's a good thing, especially at 26-year-old when he's still getting better. I mean, you saw our bullpen this year. It's been a hot mess, specifically this past month, so we're looking for some guys to maybe showcase at the relief pin next year. Not saying Jack Wisenberg is that guy yet, but I mean, if he has another year like he did this year in Double A, why not? David Leal is another guy who had a 2.44 ERA with almost a sub-1 whip, so a good year for Leal. A lefty guy as well. You know, I'd like to see him get a little bit better before he hits the major league level, but I mean, keep doing you. Shohei Tomioka is another guy here. He's older. He's also improving. A lot of D potential guys in the bullpen. Not really much to talk about. Otherwise, I'd be just kind of repeating the same thing. Colin Palouse is the same deal, except he's a C overall, so maybe he could have some impact. You know, a lot of these guys will probably stay in the minors next year. Nobody really yet who will have a future with the team. Here's a different story. Sean Newcomb, an 8.68 ERA. He only pitched in 9 1/3 innings in Double A because he started off in Triple A and he was not very good. And Newcomb is very much a veteran, so it's not like he's a prospect or anything. 30 years old. He played for us last year. He was a big guy with the A's. Also came over, I think, in that trade with Olsen. But he's never been that good, and well, he's going to be 31 years old. He might retire because of ability. If he doesn't, well, he's another guy who could be cut because of prospects, because we're not going to, he says, no chance, in my opinion, of making it back to the big, so why is he even holding on to him? Stevie Emanuel's next. He did not have a good year down there. He's just another guy. And then Gerardo Reyes didn't pitch an inning for us. Closing pitcher at Double A was Tyler Ferguson, who did pretty good in his role, but he is 30 years old and he's decreasing, so I'm not going to see a path really to him at the major league level. Catcher Kyle McCann. So this is a guy that I think could potentially outdo his potential. 62 overall. He's 26. He's going up in every category besides a -1 in speed. Had a pretty solid year at Double A. Hit 270, OPS of 711 through 77 games. So, you know, we need catching depth in the organization. We're high at the top, but you always need some catching down the list. And, well, McCann definitely earned a spot. Shane McGuire, 62 overall, D potential guy, also improving. They're a pretty good 1-2 punch at Double A. Maybe they even get a nod at Triple A next year. First base, TJ Schofield Sam, 22-year-old, who played pretty good in the Double A games that we saw. Hit 232 with a 662 OPS. 14 homers, was pretty solid. Had a good year at Double A, in my opinion. Danny Batista was also doing pretty good. He got injured, though, with a torn calf, so that kind of cut his year short. Brennan Malone didn't get a lot of at-bats. Maybe he stays there. He kind of fluctuated between Single A and Double A. Nick Schwartz also only played in 6 games. Second base, the main guy was Jeremy Eierman, and he didn't do overly that impressive. I'm hoping for a bounce-back year because he's still improving. He's a C potential, 27 years old, so he's still got some juice in the tank. Maybe he'll stay down at Double A next year to try to fix that. But Jeremy Eierman, you know, he let off a lot of games too, so hopefully he stays. But Max Muncy, here's a guy who has some potential. He was also in between Triple A and Double A this year. 66 overall C potential. He's the first guy on this list that I think could be a prospect on the Major League club next year. Now, one philosophy I'm going with is I know this team is going to be bad not only this year, we're probably not going to be good for a couple of years. Honestly, not until we move to Las Vegas. So I'm not trying to rush any of these prospects. The last thing I want to do is rush our top prospects, to the majors, and he kind of busts. So a lot of these guys who have yet to touch the majors, like you'd expect maybe a Max Muncy to get a chance, I don't want to rush them. I want them to do good in the minors before they get up to the majors. Max Muncy is past Double-A in my opinion, so he'll be with Las Vegas next year. Maybe could make it to the Major League Club in 2025, if not 2026. Third base, our top prospect, Jacob Wilson. Here's a guy who definitely will be at the Major League level next year. Start off at Single A, went to Double-A, probably will start at Triple-A next year. He is our top prospect. Might get passed once Robbie Martin enters the organization next year, but he has a good bat. He's durable. He played pretty good at Double-A in his 74 games. Maybe wish he would do a little bit better, but hey, that's just being picky. He'll definitely be at Triple-A, and I definitely see Jacob Wilson potentially being at the majors early in the first half of 2025. Shortstop Drew Swift was the main guy. He doesn't have as much of a future. Miles Naylor played pretty good despite a cold streak for him. He's only 18 years old, so I'm very intrigued to see what he can do because I thought he had a pretty decent 62 at-bats for his sample size, and he's still a teenager. Left field, Shahid Valenzuela was the main guy over there. This 26-year-old D potential. Can also play some infield. At center field, Junior Perez was the main guy. He's a C potential, 22 years of age. Had a good year at Double-A, so maybe there's a little something there. Brian Lasco is also in at center field. And then in right field, we had Johnny Butler, who unfortunately dislocated his shoulder late in the season. I thought he played pretty decent, but, he'll probably just come back to Double-A. So that does it for the Double-A guys, as we'll take a look now at the Triple-A players. This will be a little bit more focused on next year because a lot of these guys will probably be on the team next season. But as you can see, our top innings leader was JT Ginn. He's one of our top prospects in the organization. I maybe should have given him a shot this year with how bad our starting pitching was, but I didn't. Like I said, I don't want to rush any of these guys. He's still a 65 overall. His ratings are still outside of velocity break on the downside, and he's still improving, so I don't want to rush him to the bigs. But JT Ginn is the guy to look out for in this batch. Steven Echevarria, it was next in innings pitched. He's 18 years old, and he's started off in Double-A. He played phenomenal in Double-A, and he played pretty good at Triple-A too, so he's on the fast track. This guy could reach the majors before he's 20 years old, so he's been one of the surprises, I would say, for me. Not that I didn't think he was going to be a good player, but I think he's vastly outperforming my expectations of him, and he could get a chance next year. Joe Boyle got a chance this year. It was not very good. He was sensational at AAA with almost a sub-2 ERA, despite a 1.33 whip. He started in 5 games for us in the Major League Club, had a 9.87 ERA, so we sent him back down because he's done pretty good in AAA, and I didn't want to mess up that progression in his statistics, considering he didn't do good in his sample size. But he should get another chance next year. Might not make the opening day roster, but I do want to see Joe Boyle back in the majors at some point because he's pitched really good in the minors. Chase Gowen was pretty good. Not much of a future there, in my opinion. Jack Cushing, I thought, was a solid addition. 27 years old. I thought he did better than his ratings as well. He spent most of his year at Double-A, though. Relief pitching, we didn't have that many on the roster. The top guy was Adrian Martinez, who has some Major League experience. I thought about calling him up for September call-ups. Instead, I went with Danny Jimenez, just because Martinez's track record in the majors hasn't been as good as Jimenez. But you know, he's a guy who will definitely be in spring training and compete for a bullpen spot. Gerson Moreno was definitely our best reliever, 1.44 ERA. He's 28 years old. He has B potential, so he's kind of hitting that turning point where he needs to start improving and hopefully get that overall as high as it can be, because I don't know if he'll reach that B potential because he is 28 years old. Some of these statistics will probably start going down at some point. So maybe Gerson Moreno gets his chance next year in the majors because he's not going to have a much better year than he did last year. Michael Kelly is up next. He's kind of seen his time pass. He's 31 years old. He's pitched in a few games for the Guardians and the Phillies. He's played pretty good at the major league level, so maybe he deserves another chance. But at 31 years old, he's probably on the back half of his career. Francisco Perez is also a reliever, another guy that I thought about calling up for the Major League squad. Whoops, I didn't mean to hit that. But interesting, he's a switch-hitting batting relief pitcher. Not that he ever hits the ball, but he didn't have a good track record in the majors a couple years. Kind of the same thing. I went with Danny Jimenez just because of that reason. Also, he didn't do the best in his 31 innings at AAA this year. The closer was Vinny Natoli, who I could see actually retire at the end of this year. He's 33 years old. He's pitched a little bit in the majors. He did good as a closing pitcher for AAA. I mean, if he wants to have that role again next year, I don't see why he can't. Going into the catching side of things, Daniel Susac is the top catcher in the organization down here. He's a guy who definitely will be at the majors at some point next year, which is interesting because all of a sudden we have a logjam at young catchers. We have Langoliers and Soderstrom in the majors. Soderstrom has played better than Shea this year. Shea's been a little bit of a disappointment. And then you had Daniel Susac waiting in the wings. So between the three of those guys, only one of them can play catcher every single day. One of them could DH. And Soderstrom can play some first base and some outfield, but I really don't want to put him there if I don't have to. I think he's more of a DH guy. Susac is very good defensively. His bat isn't fully there yet. But, if Langoliers has another down year like he did this year, maybe Daniel Susac can take that spot. He had a good year at AAA, hit 268, 14 homers, 63 RBIs, 752 OPS. His WAR was a 3. So Daniel Susac is almost ready for the major league level. And if Shea Langoliers cannot fix it, maybe Susac's gunning for a spot. CJ Rodriguez had a good year at AAA. He would probably get more time if Susac wasn't there. He's also a pretty solid prospect, not on the same level as the other three. But hey, if he's a defensive whiz, and if he can play like he did this year, why not throw him in the mix? Carlos Perez was there. He spent most of the year with the major league squad. We sent him down. He's 33. He's definitely decreasing. He's just kind of more of a depth guy at this point. At first base, Drew Lugbauer had a good year down here at AAA, hit 261. 27 years old, trying to outperform his potential. Don't know if he'll make it to the major league level as well, but he had a good year at AAA. Second base, Max Schumann. I liked him for most of the year, but he finished 208. He was on a cold streak. He's a guy who's more of a super utility infielder, so that is valuable. If we need a guy who can play any position on the bench, Max Schumann could be that guy. And I think despite his average not being very good, if we need a desperate call-up at the major league level, Max might be the man. Cooper Bauman also played at second base this year, 65 overall seat potential, 24 years old. He's on a good progression. Colby Halter, he spent most of the year at AA. He's kind of got called up because of injuries. Third base, Brett Harris is there. He was the top third baseman this year. I don't think he'll be the top third baseman next year. It'll definitely be Jacob Wilson at AAA. Armando Alvarez was hurt most of the year with a dislocated ankle. So he actually might retire at 29 years old going into 30 while coming off a big injury. Doesn't swing the bat necessarily overly that well. So unfortunate for him. We hope he recovers. And then Jack Winkler up next, another super utility infielder. Max would definitely be the guy who beats him in that spot to the majors though. So that kind of is holding him up. Shortstop, Darell Hernandez is the guy, and he came down to AAA. If you remember, we watched his first game at AAA. And he reached base every single at bat. He only hit 239 though. He started the year with the majors, played in 59 games. He was not good. 179 average, WAR almost a -1. It was a tough year for Hernandez because he was supposed to be the starting shortstop. He'll get another chance, I would think, at the major league level, but shortstop has quickly become a logjam as well. Logan Davidson got a chance this year to be the shortstop at the major league level come August, and I thought he did a pretty good job overall as a rookie. Nick Allen is there. He's more of a defensive guy, but he's a solid piece. We drafted Robbie Martin in this draft. He was a shortstop, and he's going to be a top prospect. He will probably be in the majors pretty fast. So that's three guys that are potentially ahead of Hernandez now, who, is still a good player. Don't get me wrong, 22 years old, and he's almost already at the big league level, but he's just kind of being passed by some other prospects. He can also play third base, and you got Jacob Wilson there. And his second base is Zach Geloff. So I don't really know if Hernandez fully has a clear path. He can be a bench guy, but maybe we can use that to our advantage in trades in the future. Uriel Angeles was also at short. In left field, J.J. Bleday, he was the September call-up guy. He has not hit good in the majors, so I think we know what his ceiling is. Lazaro Armenteros was good at left field. I liked him more. I'd like to see what he can do over Bleday next year. Center field, Rosario was the top guy, but he got hurt. He tore his labrum, which is unfortunate for him because he's only 24 years old. Pedro Pineda is a center fielder that I find very intriguing. He's a 66 overall at age 20. He's got some range. I like to see the bat come around a little bit more because he only hit 190. So he probably won't be at the major league level next year, but maybe another year of fine-tuning at AAA, he could be ready for 2026. Right field, here's the other guy I think is probably the most intriguing out of the AAA hitters, and that's Clark Elliott. He was having a sensational year at AAA, and honestly could have maybe gotten the spring training call-up, but he was out with like a 6+ month injury. I don't really remember what it was, but it was some sort of fracture, I think. He recently just came back, literally as the season ended, so he only played in 81 games. He was very good in those 81 games. Clark Elliott could be that right fielder of the future, especially if Brent Rooker continues to struggle like he is now. So I'm very intrigued to see what Clark Elliott does next year. Cameron Masterman up next was a backup right fielder. He tore his hamstring, and then Colby Thomas wasn't overly that impressive, but he still has B potential. So maybe we send him down to AA to start next year. You know, get that average, get that confidence back up, because, you know, he does have a future, and he's only 23 years old. So that does it for the minor league roundup. Hope you guys enjoyed. I know it went a little bit too long in my opinion, but, you know, I just wanted to highlight everybody, kind of get you focused on next year. Here's a look at how our top prospects line up. Jacob Wilson is first. Obviously, a lot of these guys had 2024 ETA. I would not pay attention to that. I don't think that's necessarily accurate. The only guys who made it to the major league level this year were Logan Davidson. He's moved up to 7. And we saw Joe Boyle for a little bit at 11. But obviously, a lot of this will change once Robbie Martin, our number 4 overall pick, and company enter the organization. But that does it for this episode. Next episode, we will finish off the regular season. Our final game at Oakland Coliseum will host the Texas Rangers for 3 before ending on the road in Seattle. Then it's on to year 2, and we start to rebuild this team. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, make sure you drop a like and you subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. This is Mr. Rob, and I'll see you in the next one.